Maybe you can relate to that video. Maybe you've been in that place before, or you find your place there today where you're saying, God, help. I know I need to make some different decisions. And that's a great place to start. If we're going to make wise financial decisions, we've got to choose to be a faithful manager, recognizing that everything that we have, God has given us. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. And so owners have rights, but managers have responsibilities. And so we have to recognize that we have a responsibility to organize our finances in such a way that we can be faithful to what God has called us to be and to do. And so maybe you're thinking, well, that's real easy for those who have enough money to manage, but maybe you're feeling like the problem is not that I can't be faithful, but that I don't even have enough to manage. It reminds me of the preacher who went into his church and he was praying to God and he said, God, how long is 1,000,000 years to you? And God answered him and said, to me, it's just a second. So he left and kind of contemplated that. The next day he came back and he was praying and he said, God, how much is $1 million to you? And God answered him and said, $1 million is like a penny to me. So he left and he was contemplating that. And the next day he came back to his church again and he was praying and he said, God, can I have one of your pennies? And God said, sure, but just wait a second. So maybe you find yourself in that place where you feel like, hey, the problem is I just don't have enough and I'm asking God for more, but he's just not answering. And so I want to encourage you to realize that we've got to just start where we're at. That if we want God to entrust us with more, the first thing we've got to do is to be faithful managers of what we've got. We may feel like, hey, it's not fair, but the economy has never been fair. There's been plenty of people in the past who have tried to set up economies that were fair, but they just don't work. And so it's not going to get any fairer. But what we can do is we can choose to ruthlessly make wise choices with the resources that we have. And in fact, that's what Jesus says that we're really called to do in order to be entrusted with more. Take a look. Luke chapter 16, starting at verse 10. Jesus said, whoever can be trusted with very little can be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you've not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you've not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? It's kind of like saying, let's say you're the owner of a company and you need to find someone to be the manager of your store. Well, you're certainly not going to promote the salesperson who isn't faithful with the customers that they have. If they're not doing a good job providing service to their customers and making the sales and showing up to work on time and just doing their part with what they've been entrusted with, well, you're not going to promote them to sales manager of the store. No, you're going to look for the person whose character shows that they're trustworthy with what they've got, no matter how little or how much that is. And so we've got to choose to be faithful managers with whatever we've got. And if we're willing to do that, oftentimes that's the starting point that then God will come into our life and entrust us with more. Small things are small things, but faithfulness in small things is big. And so it's not, what will we do if we had $1 million? God wants to know, what are you going to do with the $10 that you have today? Will you choose to be faithful with what you have?